Information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
We need a revolution. There's only one solution. I need somebody to show me the love. We need a revolution.
Oh, and welcome to Informed Life Radio on this sunny Friday here on the west side of the state. I think it's sunny up in Puget Sound as well, but happy for a little bit of spring today. And we are here for another episode of Informed Life Radio. We're continuing our health revolution, and we've got a lot of legislation going on across the country that is potentially affecting our health. And so today, I'm your host, Bob Runnels. I have a special guest who is normally our host, is Bernadette Pajer. We'll bring her on. And hi, Bernadette.
Hey, Bob. How you doing? It's so fun to be pulled on as a guest.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to have you. Really happy. It's been such a long time. It seems you've been so busy. I'll make a couple of quick announcements as we do here, but the views expressed on our radio show today are not necessarily those of KKNW or Children's Health Defense. And our show is brought to you by the members, listeners, and activists, I say, of Informed Choice Washington. And we like to always give them a shout out. They make our show possible on the radio. They help us spread the word for all of our amazing doctors, scientists, lawyers that we have come on our show. And as well, our activists and our members sometimes come on as guests. And we'd like to keep spreading that informed life information across the state, and for those who watch across the country too. Yeah, even have some international listeners and watchers on our recordings. And we're always thankful for KKNW and their free speech radio. So please keep our radio show on the air. We're always asking for a little bit extra money. We have great members who already donate to keep us on the air, but costs are always increasing. We can use some more donations to get our achievements here in Washington State. Please drop a little dollar in the bucket at informedchoicewa.org. Thanks a lot. And so now we'll turn the microphone over to Bernadette here in just a bit. So I want to cue this up. So we've got informed consent being the basis, the concept of our mission in Informed Choice Washington, and the ability for a patient, for a citizen, for a consumer to be fully aware of what the product is that they're taking and using. And that's been a concept or a principle in how market forces correct product quality and protections for consumers, product improvement, and that ability to, sue a manufacturer if they make a bad product, or if they perhaps even hide some information or fail to warn about a certain medical condition they might be a side effect. Those kinds of things are all wrapped up, I think, in informed consent. And fully informed consent is also including the right to refuse. So we you set us up here, Bernadette, and for the most part, in my experience here in the state. And so those are the things I've learned, or at least been more concerned about, or been able to identify in terms of informed consent, and not just in medicines now, but we're talking about pesticides and the failure to warn aspect. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And Bob, I like to call it the right to decline, because when you use the word refuse, it's sort of like empowering the person who's trying to get you to do something, and you have to refuse. But we're talking about something you either can choose to do or decline to do, right? And so many of these entities, these corporations, the industries, especially when you're talking in the medical industry, they have this perception that they have the right to decide what you need to know, what you don't need to know, and what your choice really should be. And if you don't go in the direction they believe your choice should be, they call it you're refusing. And so I will have no part of refusing. Although I do like the Refusers, the great band in Washington State. What is the wonderful artist who started the Refusers?
Michael Belkin.
Michael Belkin,
Yeah,
one
shout
of the
out.
great activists, been in it a long time. He lost his baby daughter 20 years ago to a vaccine, and still fighting to this day to get really full information about products, integrated into what patients know and into vaccine policy. And as you kind of were described, this whole idea of knowing all the information you need to know about any product, so you can make an informed decision about whether you want to use it, be exposed to it, consume it, what have you, or decline to that. That's really the heart of freedom, and it's really the heart of the major issues today driving the bad health of our environment and our people and our children and our soil. Because people have been making for decades choices based on lies, based on marketing spin, rather than actually what these products are doing. And it goes anywhere from vaccines, psychotropic drugs, which is a big issue I've been tackling here in Tennessee with the bills, and we can talk about that. Pesticides, the lies that Monsanto told about Roundup, showing people when they first brought it out, spraying their yards with Roundup, wearing flip-flops, the dogs running by. They say it's completely biodegradable, and it just goes away. It doesn't get into the food. In fact, here in Tennessee, in Nashville, in the General Assembly, they had last week they had a big ag day on the Hill, and a lot of pro big ag people were there. And I got into a somewhat heated discussion with this farmer lobbyist who swore, no, Roundup decays. It breaks down in a matter of hours or days. It's not in the food. It's not in the food. And I said, have you not seen the studies that show that glyphosate actually ends up in the food? He didn't believe me. But yeah, so this is really the heart of MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, the heart of activists like us. And for me, I think what drives me most, it is the injustice of it. I hate being lied to. I hate people being harmed and somebody else profiting from that harm. And so I think that's what kind of drives me the most on this subject. So where do you want to start? I've picked out like 4 categories to sort of talk about. The big ones for me that I have more information on is pesticide, liability shield, and psychotropic drug, because I had my own bill running this year in Tennessee. What do you want to start with?
And the other 2 areas are, I think you said vaccines still. There are some vaccine liability at the federal level. They're looking at potentially removing vaccine liability. One of those legs of the 1986 Act.
Removing the shield would be wonderful. And some states are getting very clever about legislation to try to get a little protection at the state level, although it's very difficult to get around that federal law. And the other thing is the geoengineering, because when jets are flying at a certain altitude, and they're spraying the skies, it's coming down on you, and you've got no choice but to be exposed. So absolutely no informed consent for geoengineering.
Right. The lack of informed consent.
Yeah.
We have those 4 areas. Let's start with the food topic, I guess, and pesticides.
Okay.
Some of our listeners might have been tuning in to see Dr. Sina McCullough and get your hands off my food.
Yeah.
It was the topic, and she had a travel issue, as a lot of people in the country have had this week. So we've deferred her off for a week.
Okay.
So we have Bernadette this week. We'll get Dr. McCullough, not Peter McCullough, but Sina McCullough next week.
Nice. And a future show, I've asked them, Leah Wilson and Valerie Borick of Stand for Freedom, we've kind of worked together, and then the attorneys for Stand for Freedom, to write a beautiful amicus brief to the Supreme Court. We'll talk about that in a second, because this whole pesticide issue is before the Supreme Court. And so once it gets filed, I'd love for them to come on the show, Bob, and you and Lisa, we'll see where I am available, but talk about the details of this brief. It's beautiful.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
great. Yeah. And so this has at least three fronts of action. You've got states looking at pesticide liability shield bills. You've got federal level, and then you've also got the sort of courts.
the courts, yeah. So basically what's going on here is after decades of hiding, concealing risk information behind EPA labels, because the EPA fails to collect adequate safety data to register products, to license products. And pesticide companies have sort of been hiding in this little space here, keeping warnings off of labels that increases sales. The more warnings you have on a label, the lower sales. So, you know, they bet on, let's sell as much as we can, collect a few $1 billion every year. And in 20, 30 years, when these chronic harms begin to show up, well, we've profited so much already. And they balance the cost of future litigation against the current sales. And usually they weigh on not disclosing harms to the public. But here we are, several decades into this pesticide revolution, where they've sort of taken over farming, big ag in many, many nations. The harms are catching up with them. The cancers, reproductive issues, endocrine issues. There's autoimmune issues. There's just so much harm that these products are having from the residues in the soil, in the animals, in the food that we eat, as well as direct exposure. So now what they have done with Bayer, that bought Monsanto, Bayer, the big chemical company that makes all the pharmaceuticals, they bought Monsanto and all their pesticides. So 2 years ago, they founded something called Modern Ag Alliance. And they began to unite all of their big customers, the big GMO crop dealer, crop growers, the ones who tend to use most of their pesticides, and farm bureaus and those sort of organizations, to begin to lobby. I mean, it was all in their annual report that this was what they were going to do. I'm telling it in plain English of what they're doing. They put a little bit of spin on it in their annual report. But the goal was to go to every state legislature and pass what they were calling uniform labeling laws. But actually, the goal was to say that as long as something bears an EPA label, they've done their duty to warn. And so
Just a boilerplate blank statement like that would catch all.
Catch all. They've done their duty to warn, which means and they know that they're hiding chronic health impacts behind an EPA-approved label that does not warn of chronic health impacts. And
so when you buy a bottle of Roundup, you get that little insert inside the label. You peel it off, and it has this piece of paper on the bottle.
yeah.
And you unfold it, and it looks like almost like a vaccine insert, because it's got a lot of fine print.
Oh, yeah,
Is there
but
medical information? Is there adverse event information on that little insert with that bottle of Roundup?
only acute, only what happens if you get it on your skin, in your eyes, or breathe it in, not chronic, not what will happen if you're exposed to this product chronically for 10, 20, 30 years.
Okay.
That's your long-term health outcomes. The federal law requires products to not be unreasonably unsafe, full product formulations. However, EPA, when you know how you've got statutes and then you've got agencies that promulgate rules to put those statutes into practical use, right?
Rulemaking agencies.
Rulemaking.
They make rules at the agency level.
In EPA's rulemaking, they
can't go too crazy because of the Chevron deference overturn.
No, and that might be in our favor.
Okay.
So they do not require in the regulations for these pesticide companies to do long-term chronic exposure studies. So they don't have to turn those in, even though under federal law, they're responsible for the safety of their products, the full product composition, long-term. EPA doesn't ask for that information up front, and there's no place on the label, no standard place. So that was a huge thing that I had to educate a lot of legislators on, is an FDA label and an EPA label are different monsters. An FDA label, you have to have risks, warnings, contraindications, reported adverse events that might be related plausibly to the product. You have all this information. EPA labels are so different. The only warnings you're required are acute. and you don't have to put any information about all these other studies independent that are coming in. You don't have to have chronic risk warnings. So anyway, all that caught up with them. They're running state bills in the states, and they are also running at the federal level.
Who's the
Where we,
they?
huh?
Who is the they?
Bayer pharmaceutical industry is bringing to state legislatures and the federal government legislation, and then getting representatives and senators to carry the legislation and promote it.
Have you knocked elbows with any big ag lobbyists?
Oh yeah, they know who I am too. They get to know you quickly. I go up to them and say, "Hey, how you doing? Why are you doing this?" They won't really engage with you much. They kind of, it's amazing. I've noticed this thing. I don't know if they teach it in lobbyist school, but you can see lobbyists talking together and they're all animated, and they turn and look at you, and it's like a switch goes off in their eyes and their face goes flat and their eyes kind of go dead. And they're like, "Oh, don't engage with her. Don't tell her anything. What did she overhear?" Like, "Oh no, she's standing there." But so anyway, in the states, there's been a couple dozen states that have faced this legislation. 2 states have fallen, and advocates on the ground are trying to overturn the law. So Georgia, North Dakota, the bill's passed. Unfortunately, the approved EPA label will stop lawsuits that they failed to warn. But in all the other states, they've either killed it or stalled it. Here in Tennessee, we've got it stalled. There's only 1 more week for them to possibly bring it out. And Rusty Grills, if you're listening to this, please do not take the bill off notice. Just leave it, let it die. That's the rep here in Tennessee that's got it. Kansas is holding strong, although it's passed, I think, the House floor at this time. Don't quote me on it. But they're holding back in Kansas. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's got through the Senate yet.
I heard Iowa's died.
Iowa's died for the 3rd time. 3 years in a row, they killed it in Iowa.
That's important. That is like the corn basket of the country.
Corn basket, yeah. It just shows that when you really educate legislators and you get enough people being vocal, you can stop even big industry. The problem is there's not enough of us showing up in the halls. And we need more people. We need more individuals willing to go learn how to walk the halls and talk to legislators. It's so important. And to educate, on these issues. But Kentucky, their bill is on the governor's desk now. So we're praying the governor of Kentucky will veto it. And there's a chance that he will. So he's got till Monday or Tuesday to veto.
And these bills are basically, so if you have an FDA label on the product, and the label is like that generic one you talked
EPA.
about, EPA approval label.
Yeah.
And so if it just says EPA approved, essentially, with that catch-all phrase you gave,
well,
does that mean that they're clear? That's it?
Well, every pesticide company does their own science, their own studies, and they submit it to the EPA, and they draft their own label, and they submit it to the EPA for approval. And then the EPA goes through the checklist and then says, yes, this product is licensed, and yes, we approve your label.
And the EPA does no studies of their own.
They basically do no studies. They do information reviews, and they primarily use industry-funded science. Most of it is not published peer-reviewed science. They use industry-approved science.
Isn't that similar to the FDA process?
It is similar. So it's not that FDA is perfect.
What's that?
It's not, the FDA is not perfect, but yeah, it's
but it's sponsored. The studies are paid for by the sponsor, so it could be highly biased, and omissions could exist.
Right, but the FDA labels are somewhat stronger because there are adverse event reporting systems for pharmaceuticals, for vaccines, for drugs. And there is a federal mandate that when certain things are reported, the product manufacturer, if it's biologically plausible that that product caused the harm and it rises to enough serious level, they are required to put it on the label. There is no such law for the EPA. There are some lame kind of reporting systems that nobody knows about, but nothing there's no like next step. Nothing is triggered in order to ensure that anybody explores to see if it was biologically related to the exposure to the pesticide.
Okay.
And EPA only re-registers pesticides every 15 years, and then only the active ingredient. They do not go back and look at the full product formulation. And that's what we've got the difference between glyphosate and Roundup. The non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, nearly 200,000 cases of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, which Bayer has now settled in full, people are exposed to Roundup. Glyphosate, the active ingredient, the EPA is still claiming does not cause cancer, but their assessment was vacated by the Ninth Circuit Court for failure to examine the full body of science, because they primarily only looked at industry science. And the full body of science now says glyphosate is a carcinogen, and so is Roundup. So, can't trust these people. Okay, so then at the federal level, thanks to fantastic activism and people heeding the calls to action, the appropriations bill in the House that had liability shield language in it was taken out. Unfortunately, even worse language got put in the Farm Bill. And the Farm Bill passed out of the Ag Committee with this bad language in there. And I don't have time today to go over all the bad language. There's some really bad sections in there, but the liability shield is probably the worst. And it passed out of there, and it's going to now the House floor. And today was the last day they could vote on it before Easter break. And I just checked before we came on the air, and I did not see that they had moved it. So it looks like it still has not been voted on in the House there. And the Senate hasn't said whether or not they're going to take it up in their version of the bill, and each chamber does their own bill, and they come together and do a compromise bill.
Okay. I'm looking at some notes here from you, but House Bill 7567 is the Farm Bill.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to go look that up, 7567.
Yeah, HR 7567. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, HR 7567. Kind of almost easy to remember that part. But there's a section in here that really caught my eye, which almost makes the rest of the state activity moot, is section 10206, where it preempts state and local pesticide authority. So is it true then, if this passed with that language the way it is, states doesn't matter?
No, it's really bad. It takes control away from the states and the counties. So what that language that you were quoting is, besides the liability shield, it takes away the ability to regulate pesticides use at the local level.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So if you don't want it on that playground or whatever, right? You
want some local differences in watching for certain animal sensitivities or.
Yeah. And FIFRA, the federal pesticide law, has always said that licensing and approval of what goes on the label happens at the federal level, although it's on the manufacturer to make sure the product's safe. The manufacturers are supposed to update their labels when new data comes in. The responsibility is completely on the manufacturer, not the EPA. So they've always had that authority, but the ability to say whether or not that product can be used in your state, that's written into FIFRA. And they're trying to take that away. They're trying to say that no states, you can't forbid people from using these products.
And what is FIFRA?
The Federal Insecticide, and I forget what the F stands for.
Fungicide, I think.
Fungicide, Rodenticide Act. Yeah, because the term pesticide, for those new to the subject, includes every herbicide, insecticide, fungicide, bactericide. I mean, it's anything that's got a side in it, which means kills. It's at the state level about 15,000 different products. And at the federal level, there's like 60,000. Some of them are duplicates. It's one product with 10 brand names, on it. And it's Lysol wipes, it's rat poison, it's flea collars, flea baths, it's antifungals you might spray on mold on your wall.
And this is the section of code that was set up. I don't know if you could compare it to the NVIC, the the National Vaccine Injury Act, where it protects, or at least it guides use for a whole class of products. Is that what FIFRA is?
Well, no. Um, no, what you're talking about, it's really more like FDA regulations for drugs is
Okay. Okay.
FIFRA matches. Exactly. But what you're talking about is the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. And these pesticide liability shields are far worse because at least with the Vaccine Injury Act, the vaccine makers went to Congress and said, our products, we're being sued. They admitted, yes, these products can cause harm. We're being sued. You have to give us a liability shield. And Congress said, in exchange, we're doing this, but we're setting up a compensation fund and we're going to tax your products for every sale. You're going to fund the compensation. We're going to take over safety overview. We're going to take over all of this stuff. With these liability shields, nobody's admitting that the products are causing the harm that they're causing, massive harm. There's no compensation fund being set up. There's nothing taking its place. It's just you're not going to be able to sue and you're on your own. So it's way worse than what they've done with vaccines.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
very dishonest how it's been promoted. But I think we probably, let's touch on the Supreme Court real quick and
Yeah.
we should move on. So Bayer, in their desperation, the final thing is they're also at the Supreme Court. They brought one of their cases that they lost before the Supreme Court, trying to say that federal law preempts a state from having a lawsuit that would force a label change. And they're trying to basically say that if EPA approved the label, same thing, that you can't sue them, that they can't be held accountable for something that the EPA did not require to be on the label.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of legal liability power at the EPA level, really. And what if the EPA is co-opted by industry?
Exactly. Well, the way I like to say it too is courts reveal what EPA misses. And, whether they miss it intentionally or they missed it because their regulations are inadequate. But courts reveal your discovery process. That's when you get the internal documents. They find out they've known for 30 years that this can cause Parkinson's and that can cause cancer and this can cause birth defects. That's where it gets revealed. I think that the Supreme Court will, if they do the right thing, if they actually go by the law, Bayer will lose. So, and I think these state laws will be overturned. But despite my experience in the General Assembly this session, I remain a hopeless optimist that good will win. It's been bad.
Yeah.
But let's go
Sorry.
into a couple of the other subjects because we took a long. It's a very important subject. So
Well, I think
I'm glad
that's,
we covered
to
it,
me,
but-
that's definitely top of your mind, I think, and what you basically been diverted from your previous missions
Yeah, for
for
about a
the
year.
pesticide liability shield. Yeah, which
Absolutely.
is fine. But we've got some other activity happening still at state and national levels in these other
Yeah.
areas that amount to not informing people about what's happening to them.
Yeah. And so I want to move on to like psychotropic drugs. That would be your ADHD drugs, depression, anxiety drugs. There's a whole slew of them. There's hundreds of them now. And many of these carry black box warning for increased risk of suicidality, for addiction, for abuse, death. And then you've got your other warnings that aren't in the black box, like stunted growth, sexual dysfunction, manic disorder, violence, aggression. I mean, you name it. I mean, the side effects of these drugs can be really bad. And people are not being fully informed. They're not being given full product information at the time of being prescribed. And that's what we were running a bill this year to just say, you've got to give them the FDA label highlight page, just the highlights that says black box warning, here are the major risks. You have to review that. And if it comes with a med guide, something that the FDA requires of some of the most dangerous products, you have to give that to the patient as well. And if you're giving polypharmacy, if you're prescribing more than one psychotropic drug at a time, you have to give them the risk information of what happens when you give together. And if there is no data on giving these together, you have to explicitly tell the patient, we have no studies to say what happens when you take these two drugs together. But the bill failed yesterday in Tennessee in its first committee that we finally got into. So, but we haven't given up. It's the first time that we've attempted to run the bill. We did a lot of educating, and we'll be back. It's so important. And this is a topic that is happening at the national level. There's actually bills still alive at the national level for veterans. So the veterans in our nation, after serving this great country and coming home with some, PTSD and emotional trauma after what they've experienced, most of them are being stuck on psychotropic drugs. And the suicide rate and the injury rate from these drugs is horrific. And so there is an informed consent bill for written informed consent for vets. In the same psychiatric, pharmaceutical, medical industry is trying to stop it, just like they came and testified against my bill Wednesday.
Yeah.
But it's so important. The good news is, Bob, that if you look on social media and you read some major mainstream media now, it's become sort of like opioids has. There's an awareness that there's too many of these drugs being prescribed, and they're very dangerous. And they
Okay.
don't actually fix anything. They're a Band-Aid that comes with
Yeah, or
a lot of
a
risk.
panacea that just makes you feel like you're doing something about it. It does affect your psyche, but it's still
Mhm.
probably leaving the cause untreated.
The cause untreated. And, hopefully, the nation with MAHA is moving in a direction of going to the roots of what I don't even like the term mental health issues at this point, because most of the time what's going on is you've got a biological something going on. You're not eating right. You're eating artificial dyes. You've got the whole biological component of health, and we know a healthy gut means a healthy mind. The gut-brain connection is so massive, and we've really about past 10 years or so, this has really been coming to fruition for us to really understand. And of course, we're exposed to all sorts of toxins. You get brain injury, inflammation. We live in a toxic world that also is harming the brain. So, how do we deal with that in the detoxing? There's a great film out there, documentary film I recommend called Medicating Normal. And it's the medicalization of normal human emotions, of grief, of sadness,
Oh, wow.
of, so like we're not supposed to have real highs or lows. You're supposed to just take something to ease you
Level
through it
and
instead of,
level everything out.
yeah. And some people, though, the drugs level them out and leave them so level they never feel they're incapable of feeling love
It's
or
like
joy.
a chemical,
It's like
what's
you're
the
lobotomized.
lobotomy? Yeah, chemical
Yeah.
lobotomy.
Yeah, and it's traumatic. Medicating Normal gives 4 or 5 different examples of people harmed in different ways from these
Mm.
drugs that they were just casually put on and had no idea they might have this lasting, lingering effect. So,
Can you remind
um,
us of the bill that passed in Tennessee last year on psychotropic drugs? On autopsies?
oh, yes, thank you. That was, let me go down to where I've got that. Where did I put that, Bob? I'm looking at our thing. Oh, there we go. It was Senate Bill 2088. It was the first of its kind. It wasn't my ideal bill, but this is what was left. And at least it gets our foot in the door. And it said that in cases of mass shootings, if 4 or more people die, then you're able to get the psychotropic drug use of the perpetrator.
Okay, I think I'm a little confused because I see notes that say Tennessee's HB 1349 or SB 1146 was the autopsy psychotropic drug test bill
Um,
enacted
thank you. I'm looking at the
last
numbers
year.
wrong. You are absolutely right. It was SB 1146. What's going on with the one I just mentioned? That's the bill this year
Okay.
that is updating it. And I'm not sure what they ended up with.
Okay. Well, I just found the previous one, the one
Yeah.
that was enacted last April,
Mhm.
scientifically decided that this test of psychotropic drugs in mass shooters should be done for incidents where 4 or more are killed. Like not
Well,
3 or more, pretty
Well,
tragic. Still.
I know. It's really infuriating. But in order to get this passed, they set it at what is the definition at the federal level of a mass shooting.
Okay.
And that's set at 4 or more. Um, uh, the senator here who's been carrying this legislation has been wanting to get the number reduced, the testing expanded, but having to chip away because every single step he's being fought by, industry who doesn't want this information brought out. And there's some technicalities. I'm looking now at see if I can find that bill here. Here is the amended language. Let me see if I can find.
The 2088 now. This year.
Yeah,
Bill?
I'm looking to see. It looks like they only. I think what the next thing is if the perpetrator lives through the experience of the shooting, now they need to ask them, will you submit to a psychotropic drug test?
They still have the right to refuse?
They do
have
have the right to
decline?
refuse.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, but we
Okay,
keep
great.
trying.
Informed
Yeah.
consent, right? Yay.
Well, these laws can be frustrating, but that's freedom. They're not always in our best interest. But yeah, we're going to keep on that one. It's so important to know.
It
And
is.
I had an adverse events section in my bill that we ended up removing to try and get it passed. It didn't help, where only serious adverse events were required to report to MedWatch, and that would have captured the drug use of shootings in an anonymous way at the federal MedWatch system. But that failed as well. So
Thank you. That's all we can
Yeah.
say, I guess.
Oh, real quick, I got to back up to the pesticide. I forgot to tell you that Senator Cory Booker has a bill in the Senate, likely won't go anywhere because a Democrat, and right now it's, the Republicans are in control, so I don't know if it'll pass. But where was that one? It is the Pesticide Injury Accountability Act. So S2324, if anybody wants to go check that out. Pesticide Injury Accountability Act, create a federal private right of action for individuals harmed by pesticides. Because right now there is no federal right of action. You have to take a lawsuit to the state level. And if these liability shield bans are passed in the states, you've got nowhere to go with a claim. So he has a bill to set up your right of action at the federal level.
Yeah, and once again,
Yeah.
that's kind of on the individual rights level, and this is a Democrat, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Like you pointed out earlier, the Democrats tend to support individual rights in the pesticide field, but not
They do.
necessarily in the pharmaceutical field.
Yeah, they're big on that side. Here in Tennessee, it was really interesting. Who sided up with who?
Yeah.
I've made some good friends, or I don't know if I would say good friends, but people that we have a high respect for each other on certain subjects now with the Democrats. It's been quite nice to have a working relationship. It's like, why can't we just do this all the time? Have these come together in this common ground? It's very refreshing.
Yeah.
I'd like to expand that.
Yeah. Not be so beholden to whatever the caucus is saying and holding a strong line on.
Yeah. So there we go on that. So, huge issue with the pesticides, the psychotropic drugs. We want informed consent. The vaccine informed consent is still coming along. A lot of states still battling. I don't have a lot of information here. South Carolina has a bill that requires verbal and written informed consent before administering the COVID shot. And South Carolina has a medical informed consent act. The bill that Idaho passed, was it last year or the year before? There's several states picking up the Medical Freedom Act that is not only just vaccines, but pretty much informed consent on, I think South Carolina is calling it the Medical Informed Consent Act that would make sure you have the right to choose, and the right to choose cannot include coercion of any kind.
Right.
You cannot.
Not school, not a workplace mandate. In Idaho, they were successful. Workplace mandates do not exist right now.
Yeah. So we really got to keep an eye on that, and everybody pick what you're most passionate about to keep working on. So I'm afraid I don't have a lot of information there, but I think the show has covered a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
vaccines.
we do. And certainly as the state is concerned, we always focus really heavily on our state legislation here in
Mhm.
Washington. But if you want the full national scope, you can always go to NVIC. I don't mind shouting out
Yeah.
the National Vaccine Information Center,
Mhm.
NVIC Advocacy, and NVIC Advocacy will have lists of every state's active bills that are in the phase of uh, being written, whether it's in committees, whether it's about to be signed. They'll have all those being tracked
Yeah.
fairly well. It's an amazing team there at NVIC Advocacy, tracking all the bills in all the states that are affecting vaccines and
Uh,
vaccine laws and vaccine mandates.
And of course, Children's Health Defense continues to do a great job on the vaccine front. And The Defender is, a top magazine that I encourage people read, if not just scroll through daily, at least a couple times a week, scroll through the headlines. You're going to get on all of these issues, including vaccines. But big pharma, big ag, big tech, they've got some really good writers who, doctors, scientists, engineers, attorneys who are trying to stay on top of all these issues. And I think it's a great place to kind of get all that news.
Yeah, does
Um,
Children's Health Defense track geoengineering much?
I think so. I think they've moved into that area. So I'm
Okay.
glad you brought up geoengineering. So right here in Tennessee, what year was it? 2024, we were the first to enact a geoengineering ban bill, but it was completely toothless. And the thing about passing a bill that becomes law in your state is if there's no teeth, there's nobody's held accountable and there's no way to punish anybody for breaking the law, nobody follows the law.
Mm,
And the other thing is when laws pass, there's no automatic, except for in some areas, distribution system. So nobody even knows that a law passed unless somebody who cares about it works really hard to make sure people get informed that this law even exists. So
mm,
yeah, I mean, there's still people in Tennessee who don't know you can buy ivermectin over the counter from a pharmacist.
mhm.
It's like, are you kidding? You didn't know that?
Yeah. Yeah, we have two laws that are actually pretty old here in Washington that nobody knows about in the healthcare fields. But you have a right to try Laetrile as a
Mm.
cancer treatment and DMSO for any other of the many treatments for DMSO. And it's literally in our code that
You're
you can't sue doctors for trying it on you.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's right next to where I wanted to put a few other right to tries.
Well, goodness, we should do a show on that.
And in fact, that's where they lumped it. It's like the catch-all section of the health department code.
Yeah.
And that's where they put the bill 1531, I believe, where
Oh,
basically counties can't say anything against what state mandates say.
how's that working for you? Has
They
anything been
haven't
reviewed?
necessarily overturned. They haven't bothered to overturn the resolutions. We had two medical freedom resolutions that
Yeah.
passed in the state. One in Cowlitz County, another one at was it Franklin County, I believe. And yeah, we
Yeah.
had those two resolutions pass, and they haven't like come down and said you have to take this off your website, as far as I know.
They're probably just holding that law in their back pocket until their next pandemic, so they can whip it
I
out and
agree.
control the counties.
Oh yeah, it's all part of the chipping away and building their
Yeah,
walls. And,
yeah.
investing in
We
public health at the expense of individual health. Thank you very much.
exactly. And so our skies are still crisscrossed with
Mm,
geoengineering. A bill was run this year, and it's the same Representative Monty Fritz who's carrying it in the House. He's also running for governor here in Tennessee. And tried to put some teeth into it. And I don't believe that has gone through. I don't have an update here. There were so many bills to track this year. I could not keep up. I
mm,
don't believe that one got through. Florida signed a bill in June. It's a broad ban on international atmospheric interventions, including solar modification and cloud seeding. So we'll see what happens in Florida. And in Montana, they passed one of March 2025, similar language. Whether or not they have teeth are going to be able to, I mean, at some point above your state, it's federal airspace. And then
mhm,
I don't,
mhm.
I don't know.
Do you know much about the old cloud seeding techniques and the chemical that they used
No,
predominantly? Yeah.
I don't. But the worst of it, I think, is the stuff used to attempt to control the temperature of the planet.
Well, obviously, and we know those theories exist, and we know they've at least outlined experiments to do that.
Yeah.
I think the trouble is there's not been definitive proof that they've actually been executing the experiments.
Have you noticed lately? I noticed here about a year ago is the first time I saw it. It was bizarre. I always noticed the lines in the sky, and
Okay.
they would be straight lines across. But it's like these pilots are like aware that the people down there are looking up and we're mad. I now see lines going straight up. It's like there's no way to confuse this with a contrail. This is not a jet airliner flying overhead. They're going straight up. They're making the most bizarre patterns now, as if to say, yep, I'm getting paid to do this. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to make it as obvious as possible down there, people.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. At the federal level, Marjorie Taylor Greene had a bill. I don't know what's going on because she stepped down from office. She had HR 4403, and there was an HR 7452 Air Quality Act, and that was Representative Greg Steube, Steube. I apologize, I don't know how to say his name. Yeah. So, the efforts are being made, and we've at least got this to the state where it's kind of hard to deny that this is happening. Because when people are bringing testimony, they're bringing official records, they're bringing White House records and reports and kind of showing that, yeah, this is real. This is really going on.
Is it going on, at least this testimony or the data that's coming forth, is it showing experiments taking place, or is it showing an ongoing program?
Both.
Wow.
Ongoing programs. Yeah. So
Hmm.
this isn't the rabbit hole I've gone all the way down on. I haven't given personal testimony myself. So I kind of follow it at the surface level. So I don't want to talk too much because I see what happens with our legislators when they make bold statements based on the title of something. Kind of like what they did with my bill. Assuming they know it. I actually had committee members say to me, I'm a hard no, but I actually haven't read it yet. Okay, so much for voting on the merits of the bill.
Thanks for your honesty.
Yeah, appreciate it. That's good to know. Yeah.
Great debating with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, in the committee on my psychotropic drug bill, that one representative went on and on just berating the rep carrying the bill. And when he got all done, I texted her because I'm the one who drafted the bill and the amendment to the bill and the next amendment to the bill, trying to find some compromise language. And I texted her, she's standing at the podium, and I could see her looking at her phone. She looks down and she says, actually, we addressed that in the bill. We included that. And he's like, he had no idea because he hadn't read it. He just berating her for things that we had already addressed in the bill. But
Yeah. Well, I don't envy legislators when they have the fire hose they have to read and drink through every day. Can be really difficult.
when you've got 1,000 bills before you every year, and so on a daily basis, not only are you running your own bills that you have to know really well,
Right.
but if you're on 4 committees and each committee's hearing 30, 40 bills that day, I mean, I don't know. How do you possibly?
That's when
The-
staff helps too, because at least I understand in our state, in Washington, they
Yeah.
have a lot of staff that help each caucus, so that you can get somewhat
Yeah.
unbiased, and then you have nonpartisan staff as well that help give you the details if you have detailed questions. Give me that summary. I need that executive summary,
Right.
please.
But let's kind of end with the fact with listeners here is that's why it's so important for citizens to get involved, because on a few subjects they might themselves go down the rabbit hole, but for the vast majority of subjects they are listening to whoever comes to their office and speaks to them about it. And if 99% of the people coming to their office on a topic are the lobbyists, that's all they know. But they're very willing and wanting to listen to, people who bring them, citizen advocates like us, factual information. They want that, but they are so shy of that. And really, when you've got 1,000 bills to deal with, you're just going to have to trust. And if you don't have a competent legislative assistant or a good, and not all of them have like individual research analysts in their office that high share
Right,
of it
not
do.
all. Definitely
Right.
not all, especially in smaller states. I think,
Yeah.
Tennessee and Washington, almost the same population. Maybe the legislature is about the same size.
Yeah. So really, I hope people would be encouraged to know that you do have a good shot of, we'll use the word influencing, but in a positive way, of really showing them what's important to citizens, showing them the real science, showing them the real data, showing them the real harm of something or the benefits of something. And it doesn't take a lot. I've seen some really good bills pass with only one or two citizen advocates walking the
Mm,
halls versus 100 lobbyists.
mm,
Um, and it depends on the subject, if it's a very hot political subject, then, unfortunately, politics has that bigger voice, but that's when you have to get louder. And you don't always, I mean, we lost a lot of it this year. It was in Tennessee. It hasn't been a good year because the governor's seat is up and everybody's jockeying for position to sort of who's going to be the lieutenant governor, who's going to be the speaker of the House, who's going to be the speaker of the Senate. And they're all sort of making decisions based on who they think is going to win.
and are they voting on just basically a cover your butt situation where they can't necessarily step out or take a controversial position right now?
Yeah, I believe so.
And your session goes for another month, I think.
No, we've got 2 more weeks,
2
I
more weeks.
think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be done in 2 weeks. And, as usual, Bernadette's for the underdog. So I know we can't talk on this show about, rah-rah on individuals, but I can say, though, that I'm for the underdog. So,
Yeah. Well,
um,
yeah, it's certainly an
yeah,
underdog life for us here in Washington.
yeah. But I want people to just realize that we can make a difference on very key subjects. And where we're most empowered, Bob, is the day-to-day conversations. Because no matter what the people that we elect do when they're in session, what laws they pass or don't pass, each of us in our everyday lives, this is Informed Choice Washington, you can make the right decision for yourself. You can make the right decision for your family, for your neighborhood. We can put these people out of business that are harming us if we simply spend a little time researching and then don't give them our business, don't give them our money.
Mhm.
They'll have to change direction if we quit feeding them what they live on, which is money.
Yeah, and I like your point too, in terms of hearing just at least from a couple activists, or a couple people, a couple citizens who actually have that personal situation that has impacted them.
Yeah,
We can speak all day about the issue, from our position, but a lot of our members they know how to say no now, and they avoid any of the bad repercussions. They know they've got an alternate healthcare system that they don't necessarily have to be steered toward the state-run systems as much, and so they can
exactly.
say no. But still, it's their tax money that's being used, and maybe there's
Yeah.
another story to be told about how much money people are spending outside the system because they don't like the system that the state is offering anymore.
No, they don't. And I think that's very exciting, though, that we are empowered to make we can create a new, better system.
Yeah,
And
it's happening. I
yeah.
believe it's happening.
Yeah.
We're trying
Thanks,
to
Bob.
do a little bit. Yeah. Hey, Bernadette, thank you so much for joining your own show. Inform Life Radio. And so good to hear from you. I'm sorry your bill got crushed down or left on the shelf as it was. And we
Yeah.
appreciate your example. You are awesome. And
Thank you.
next week, tune in for Sina McCullough and Hands Off Our Food.
Everybody have a great weekend.
Informed Choice Washington is a nonprofit organization that advocates for healthy immunity, medical freedom, and fully informed medical consent. The right to make medical choices without coercion is fundamental to our civil liberties and a basic principle in all human rights declarations. To learn more, tune in each Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. to an Informed Life Radio and visit the website informedchoicewa.org. It's time to take a stand for medical freedom. Go to informedchoicewa.org today.
Did you know that solutions containing iodine can inactivate viruses in the nose and throat in 15 seconds? And hydrogen peroxide can do it in under 30 seconds. Decades of studies, including many conducted during COVID, have shown that properly prepared and used nasal spray and gargling solutions can reduce your risk of infection, reduce viral load, reduce symptoms, and reduce transmission of viruses. To learn more, go to healthyimmunitynow.org and check out the EFU Challenge. Why spread fear and infection when nature provides solutions? Go to healthyimmunitynow.org today.
The information contained in this episode is for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.